Hakadosh, Erev Tov, this is Masechet Menachot, Daf Yomi Daf Chet Amud Aleph 8A1. The Gemara says, Vim ita. If you're going to tell me right now that according to Shtat Rabbi Elazar, the dam of the Zvachim are not going to be mitkadesh lechatzain, which means it does not become holy if it's only a half product, lelef midam, so then it would have been learned from the dam of the Menachot, that they also are not mitkadesh lechatzain. So why do we have to learn it from somewhere else? Just learn it from the dam. And if you're going to tell me Rabbi Elazar milta mimilta lo gamar, that according to Shtat Rabbi Elazar, we do not learn davar mi davar, meaning one thing from another thing. Okay, so he says, and that's why he says that the dam zvachim is not mikadesh lechatzain, but the menachot, it does help to learn, right, that it is going to be mikadesh lechatzain. V'amar Rabbi Elazar mincha shekematza be'echal, says Rabbi Elazar that if you take a mincha and you did the kemitza in the Hechal and not in the Azara, remember the Hechal is inside the building, not in the Azara. Keshera, it's going to be kosher. Sheken matzinu b'siluk bazichin. Just like we find that when you're taking out the bazichin, which is the spoons of the frankincense from the shulchan, which is also like the kmitza by menachot. So it's done in the echal. So therefore, Rabbi Elazar learns on the other menachot, right, from the lechem apanim. So therefore, right, you cannot say that we don't learn davar mi davar. It's incorrect. You do learn davar mi davar. So answers the Gemara, mincha min mincha yalif. You can learn a mincha from the mincha. Meaning, if you're going to consider the siluk of the bazichin, which is taking out the spoons of the frankincense, that's like a mincha, that you can learn a mincha to another mincha. But mincha from dam, because here we're talking about, remember, dam of the zevachim, that you cannot learn. So mincha from dam, you don't learn. So says the Gemara, umi mincha mi mincha mi alif, you learn from mincha from another mincha, but we learned in a braita. Ad shelo pirka nifras lachma. What happens right now if it broke the bread of the lechem apanim? Before the Kohen came and took him off. Halechem pasul, so the lechem becomes pasul from being the lechem apanim. Ve'en maktir elav et habezichin, and you cannot bring the frankincense. Mishipirka, but already if you right now came and you took out the bread, nifras lachma, and then it broke, halechem pasul maktir elav, the lechem is pasul, but you could still come and bring the bezichin. But Rabbi Elazar says, Rabbi Elazar, lo pirka mamash. We're not talking about dafka that when you took off the lechem mamash, and then you took it off from the lechem, from the shulchan. The fact that it's already the time where you have to take it off, even though you didn't actually take it off, it's like keilu that it's already taken off. And therefore, again, the lechem becomes disqualified, but you're still allowed to bring the bazichin. So says the Gemara, why? This is considered like a mincha, which is lacking, right, before the kmitza. Because we learn by the baziche levona to do the lechem apanim, the same thing. Now, if you're going to learn a mincha from another mincha, right? So therefore, why can't you learn it? So he says, halakashi, that's not a question. Mincha lo barir kometz didei, veha barir kometz didei. A regular mincha, right? The kometz is not mevuran until you actually do it. Meaning, I've got the mincha, the meal offering in front of me. Until you don't actually come and do the kmitza, I don't know where it is. I don't know what I'm doing. He says here in the lechem apanim, it's already barur kometz tideh. He says even beforehand, because the levona is the kometz. So the levona is already separated. I already know where it is. So the second that it's already the time to do it, it's like kilo, I already did it. So you cannot compare this part from the regular mincha, from the lechem apanim. So we're going to ask a question. It should be like leftovers, which is going to be between the kmitza and the aktara, right? Because we don't bring the komets on them. Okay, so he says, lav pluk taninu, says the Gemara, it's a machloket. So what you're coming and you're asking me a question. If it's a machloket, you'll take the other shita. That's it. There's nothing what to talk about. Fine. We're going back to what we spoke about before. Gufa. Chavite Kohen Gadol, Rabbi Yochanan says, "Ena kedusha lechatzein." It's not going to be kadosh for chatzein. Rabbi Elazar says that it's mitoch shekarva lechatzein. Since you're going to bring in the chatzein, kedusha lechatzein. Amar Ravacha comes and he says, "My time, Rabbi Yochanan. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Yochanan?" Amar, the pasuk says, "Mincha machatzita." What does it mean when it says to do with the korban mincha that it's machatzita? Because it says machatzita b'boker, machatzita ba'arev. So he says, "Hevi mincha ve'achar kach chotzeu." you have to bring a full mincha, and then you split it into half. Okay, so at the beginning you're going to do the entire isaron together, and then you split it in half. You bring half in the morning, half in the nighttime. So Meitve, so we're going to ask a question. You would never bring it as a half. Shalem used to bring one isaron and then he used to split it in half. So the Braita is teaching us that the minchat chavitin is not going to be a kadosh for chetzi. It doesn't exist being kadosh for chetzi. You always have to bring one whole, and after making it holy, now you cut it, and now you do it. The Tanya, we learned in the Braita, ilu ne'emar, if it was written mincha machatzit. So then Aiti Omer, then I would have said, you're going to bring a chetzi saron from the house, shachrit, and you're going to bring it. Chetzi saron mibeto arvit, and you're going to bring it. Tamul omar machatzitah baboker, mechza mishalem hu mevi. He's bringing half of a full one. So you see from here, right, that he has to do a full isaron, and then he's going to split it. So therefore, this Braita is coming to teach you that there's no kiddush for chatzaim. So answers the Gemara, according to Rabbi Elazar, this Braita is only the mitzvah, meaning it's a mitzvah lechatchila to do it that way. But b'diavad, if you did do it in lechatzaim, it's still going to be kosher. Amala Rav Geviha mi Bekatil the Ravashi. He says Rav Geviha from Bekatil to Ravashi. Ve'achu kaktiba. It's written chok because it says ve'akohen Mashiach yaseh otah chok olam. Now, when you say that it's going to be a chok, it's even b'diavad me'akev, not just lechatchila. So Elmaleh, he says, no. The drasha was coming to teach you that you have to bring an isaron shalem from the house, right? But it's not talking about that the full isaron you have to do it in one shot and then you have to split it. But you do have to bring the full isaron from the house. So says the Gemara, does Rabbi Yochanan she say such a thing? He says, v'ha'itmar, it was stated. He says, ifrish chetzi isaron, if you separated a half of isaron, and then you wanted to add on the shiur shalem, right? Rav says, kadosh, it's not going to be kadosh. Rabbi Yochanan says it is kadosh. Now, if you're going to tell me that according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's not going to be kadosh with chatzayin, lerev mechavitin, learn from the chavitin, right? That also, it's not going to be kadosh with chatzayin. And if you're going to tell me Rabbi Yochanan, if he doesn't learn from one thing to another, Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan, shlamim sheshachtam be'echal. If you came and you did the shlamim and you shechted there, you did the slaughtered in the Hechal. Now again, remember, the Hechal you do not do shchitas. It's supposed to be in the azara. This is a shlamim also, which is even kadashim kalim, right? So he says keshirin. It's going to be kosher. Tichti v'shachtu petach l'moed. It says you're going to do shchato. You're going to do the shchita and the entrance of the moed. Shelo yetafel chamur miikar, which means it's not mistaber to say that the tafel, which is the azara, right, is michutz la'Hechal, is going to be more chamur, which is more kadosh to do the kashrut of the shkita from the ikar. Meaning, how does it make sense that if I do the ikar, obviously is the Hechal. What's a proof? The kodesh kodashim is inside the Hechal. The kodesh kodashim, you have the right, the Hechal, the ulam. So it cannot be that you would do a shechita outside in the azara and it's kosher, and then you would do shechita inside the Hechal, which that's kilu the ikar, and it's going to be not kosher. Doesn't make sense. So he says, Dato leosif shani, says the Gemara. However, though here you wanted to add on. The fact that you wanted to add on, that's why we're going to say that it would be kadosh lechatzaim. The Tanya, as we learned in the Braita, meleim. What does it mean now, meleim? We're talking about kelim shekichu ba menachot meleim. So he says em meleim ela shlemim when it's shalem. Rabbi Yosef says one of these words if you don't want to add. But if you want to add rishon kadosh, it is going to become kadosh. The Rav, and according to Shdat Rav, that he says that the mincha is not going to be mikadesh chatzayin. The chavitin command svirele. Who does he hold like then? He says, "Ikad Rabbi Elazar." If he holds like Rabbi Elazar, let my chavitin learn from chavitin. Bechitim. Now, if you're going to tell me, right, Rav minta loyal, if he doesn't learn one thing from another, Amar Rav, mincha kadosh lo shemen. The mincha is going to be kadosh without shemen. Sheken matzil mulechem apanim, right? Belo levona. Also without frankincense, it's going to be kosher. Why? Sheken matzil mulechem nesachim. Mincha nesachim does not have, right, the levona. It only has solat and shemen. Below shemen of lo levona, it doesn't have either or. Sheken matzil minchat choteh, right? So again, it comes from minchat choteh that it doesn't have the. You remember it was dry, right? Because we didn't want to add the oil. We didn't want to because we wanted that it should be like a sin. So al korchach Rabbi Yochanan, Rav holds like Rabbi Yochanan, which means Rav holds like Rabbi Yochanan that it's not going to be mitkadesh lechatzayim. Gufa amar Rav, says Rav, mincha kedosha v'lo shemen. A mincha is going to be kadosh without shemen, right? Ve'shekem atzinu melechem apanim, but that's why we found melechem apanim, right? But there's no shemen. Below levona without frankincense, because that's what we found in Minchad Nesachim, that there's no frankincense, there's no levona. Below shem lo levona without either or, because that's what we found in Minchad Choteh, right? By the person that sins, and it's korban olev yored, and the least one was going to be this, he doesn't bring either or. V'shemen v'levona kodshe, right? He says over here, and even shemen ulevona by Minchat Kadashim without solet, hablo hai v'hablo b'lai. Each one is without each other, right? Shemen shekemetzu log shemen shemetzura. We found by the log shemen of a metzora that it's going to be mitkadesh b'kli sharet by itself. Levona, it's going to become kadosh. Shekemetzu right haba b'vazichin, that it's going to be kadosh by itself as well. Rabbi Chanina Amar, Rabbi Chanina comes and he says, Daf Chet Amud Bet 8b, lo zo kedusha b'lo zeh, v'lo zo kedusha b'lo zo. He says each one is not going to be kadosh without each other. And according to Rabbi Chanina, isaron lama nimshach. Why is it that it was going to become holy in the kli sharet? So he says leminchat choteh. We're talking about leminchat choteh. Velog lama nimshach. So why the kli log? Why is it going to become holy with the kli sharet? So he says for the log of metzorah. Meaning each one of them had to become holy for a certain korban. So the log of the log in itself was for the log of the metzorah. Okay, the isaron was for the minchat choteh. Okay, and even Shmuel holds the din of Rav that the solet mincha is going to be kadosh even without the shemen or the levona. The Tanam, as we learned in the Mishnah, kle alach. We're talking about now the utensils used for lach, for moist measurements. Mekachin et alach. It's going to sanctify the lach. Umidot yavesh, in all the utensils of kli sharet for the yavesh, mekachin et yavesh. Meaning each one cannot, that means the ones, it's basically using milliliters and grams, right? That basically usually use grams for solids and milliliters for liquids, and we don't usually, again, we do it once in a while, that we do say grams and things are for both, but usually we don't mix and match. The same thing, that's what the Gemara is actually saying right now. Okay? So he says over here like this. So he says, okay, he says like this. So he says, Shmuel says, אבל מזרקו מקדשות את היבש, שנאמר בזה, שניהם מלאים, סולב לא ושם למנחה. Okay. אמר לרבחה מדיפתי לרבינה, says רבחה מדיפתי לרבינה, מנחה לחה היא. So he comes and he says, mincha is lacha. Right? What does that mean? He comes and he says, the korban mincha is actually the lach, because it's solet ulav hashemen, it's mixed with oil. So it should be considered lach. So how are you going to come and use it then with a kli yavesh? You just told me that you don't mix and match. Here it's mashma that you do. We're talking about the yavesh, meaning it's going to sanctify the yavesh part of it. Okay, we skip out the brackets. If you can answer, right, which means that the korban mincha to do with blood is considered yavesh. That means even though you're right that mincha you mix it with oil, but it's still considered yavesh when you're talking about the liquid of dam. Okay, fine. So says the Gemara, yeah, as follows. Okay, he says now like this. Gufa. Amar Rabbi Elazar, says Rabbi Elazar. Yeah, he says like this. He says, Mincha shekmatza be'echal kshera, shekam esinu b'sliv u'zechin. We said that when you have a mincha, that you did the kmitza inside the echal, which is the wrong way of doing it, it's going to be kosher. Why? The silub b'zechin. So Mati Rabbi Yirmiyah comes and he asks, Misham ve'kamatz misham, when it says in the pasuk, ve'vial el bnei Aaron ha'kohanim ve'kamatz misham, mimekom sheraglei hazar omdot. We're talking about a place where there's a heter for the zar to be, which is basically the Achad Amot. Remember that at the beginning of right before the Zrat Kohanim, there's 11 Amot where the Izrati said where they're still allowed to stand. So Ben Betera comes and he says, Minayin shin kamatz be small, she'achzor v'yekmot b'yamin. You remember we spoke about this in the Mishnah. What happens if you do the Kmitza from the left? You could do it again, you just put it back and do it with the right. So Yikadamri, there are those that say, he asked the question and he answered it. I'm going to explain it to you. Lo nitzecha, when are we dealing with להכשיר את כל האזנה כולה, to permit the entire הזרה. שלא תאמר הואיל ועולה קודשי קדושים מנחה קודשי קדושים מה עולה תאונה צפון סוטו מנחה תאונה צפון. I would have thought to say that the olah is going to be like the mincha will be like the olah. Remember that the olah, you need to do everything in the tzafon. Remember the shkitata b'tzafon, and we learn all the other kodesh kadashim from the olah. So I would have thought to say that also the mincha has to be done davka v'kamatz misham from the tzafon. So he says, Mala olah sheken kalil. He says, why would you say that? The olah has a stringency that doesn't have by the mincha. The entire thing gets consumed on the mizbeach. Olah kalil. The entire thing gets consumed. So says Gemara, find the chatat. At the end of the day, the chatat is not completely consumed. So he comes and he says, okay, fine. You have the chatat that is going to be mechaper on chayve kritut. So you can't learn from the chatat. So says, okay, fine, from the asham. Says mal asham shekem yedarim. Yeah, but the asham has blood. The mincha, there's no blood. So answers the Gemara, mikulu nami. But 1 second, but all of them have blood. The olah, asham, hatat, they all have blood. So therefore, what's going on? But rather, you do need to learn for kamatz misham. I would have thought to say, since it's written mikriva lakom yishal mizbeach vekamatz, my gisha bekenen doromim is maravit of kmitza bekenen doromim maravit. Just like that gasha is going to be done on the south western part of the mizbeach, so too the kmitza should be done on the southwestern part of the mizbeach. Kamash malam vekamatz misham. Then we don't learn that from there, but rather it's kasher in the entire azara. So anywhere in the azara where they want to do the kmitza, they're allowed to do it. They don't have to do it specifically from the southwest. Gufa was also stated. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Shlamim sheshachtam be'echal. When you have a shlamim that they did the shchita in the echal, kashinim, it's going to be kosher. Shneimar says in the pasuk, ushchato petach l'moed. Ve'lo yeh tafel chamur min ha'ikar. So we already brought this down, that we don't want the tafel, which is the azara, to be more chamur than the ikar. It cannot be, right, that the azara is better than the echal. So therefore, if you do it in the azara, it's going to be kosher shchita. If you do it in the echal, it's going to be kosher shchita. So maybe they're going to ask, how do you know that if the goyim come and they do a siege on the azara, they're going to come and they're going to eat everything in the azara, in the echal? How do you know that? They're all around the azara. They go inside the echal and they do it in the echal. How do you know? Tell me, Lomar comes teach you, right, that they're going to do it in the Kodesh HaKodashim, which means in the Hechal. So he says, why do I need a pasuk? So say the same svara, that you should not have the tafel chamur min hayikar.